You started recording?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you been recording this?
Not only some of it.
You really do need to stop just recording me in the middle.
Well, I do have an intro this time.
Okay.
It's just a little quick setup, and then you deliver the punchline.
Okay.
Basically, Tawana, if you were a Philadelphia homicide detective in the 1960s, and you got dragged into this case in fuck all nowhere, Mississippi, with a bunch of racist honkies, what would they call you?
They call me Mr. Ted.
That's goddamn right.
Okay. In the heat of the night. Okay, welcome to the second week.
Yeah.
Episode 2. Okay.
Going strong.
Yeah, I haven't stopped yet. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been fine. Bit slow, but, got to watch some good movies.
What have you seen?
I haven't watched up much this week. Last night, though, that was like 3 in a row. For me, that was... What was it? Her, and then...
It was Her.
And then 310 to Yuma, which I've been wanting to see for a while. And then 2 episodes of American Primeval, and then I went and watched the rest of In the Heat of the Night.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Last night, so...
Okay. Yeah. I've realized lately that I've been really putting in the numbers with films. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been putting in the numbers. I'm happy about that. Been getting a lot done.
It's good. They've been good ones. I've been thinking I need to put together a spreadsheet at some point and just go and mark down every movie that I've seen. Because when I think about...
That's a lot.
I couldn't tell you how many movies I've seen. I estimated a few hundred, 1,000 over my life. Like...
It's going to be 100,000, isn't it?
It can't be in the 100,000s.
I think for me it's 100,000. Think about every single film you've watched.
I think 100,000 movies is more time than a human lives.
100. So many movies.
It would be a lot of movies.
I've been watching movies since... God. Before 6.
Yeah. I mean, were there kids' movies before that? Like, I grew up, I watched, like, Land Before Time and some other Disney things before I was exposed to real movies.
Okay.
Quote, unquote,
and I'm going to put it out
movies.
there. I wasn't watching kids' films.
Interesting.
Because I had older brothers.
Yeah.
So they would tend to watch, they didn't want to watch cartoons. I was really on the cartoon vibe.
Sure.
But because I had older brothers,
we'd
watch whatever they watched. And my dad was really into Kung Fu movies as well. So I watched a lot of Kung Fu movies.
Interesting.
A lot of Jackie Chan movies. That's what I mean. It could be in the 100,000s because I don't even know which ones I've seen. I don't even remember. I remember a lot of like Jackie Chan films. Like, what's it? Disclosure, the Michael Douglas film with Demi Moore.
I don't even know.
I watched that way too young.
That's
way
a weird one to show to a kid.
Oh my god. Well, to be honest, it wasn't shown to me. But
you experienced it.
Yeah, I mean, at that age, you don't really know what you're watching. You're surfing through the TV. I think because I spent a lot of time at home by myself at a young age that I was just consuming. So I can't look at these kids today and be like, you're consuming too much content. Because I was the original consumer of content.
I spent way too much time on the internet as a kid and watching cartoons and stuff.
See, that's the thing. I remember a world where the internet wasn't around.
Sure.
And because I was by myself, it was just the TV and whatever was on the TV.
That was my life for a while, but I'm pretty sure I did a good job of like fencing myself in, like being my own parental controls, because as a young kid, if I saw something that I knew was adult, I would be like, oh no, I can't watch this. And I would flip back to cartoons.
You know what?
That dropped eventually, but...
I don't know if I ever did that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think there was a lot of like if I went to like my cousins, and then a movie came on, then we couldn't watch it because we were too young.
Sure.
But we were so young, we were still watching WWE. So make that make sense. And it was during the Attitude Era. which I realized by watching the documentary that was the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
It was fucking insane. But this week, it's my choice.
Yes. Tawana, why did you choose In the Heat of the Night?
You know what?
Her first pick.
This is why consciousness is so interesting to me, because I have a whole list. I have a document that's got all these films that on my list that I'll pick. And I was gonna pick something different.
Mm-hmm.
Then a voice inside said, In the Heat of the Night.
In the Heat of the Night.
And then with Trump's inauguration this week,
Sure.
it seems so fitting to go back to the good old days. And since you loved quoting the film last week, I cannot wait to hear your quotes this week.
I don't have as many quotes this time.
Oh, that's a cop-out.
There's
a cop-out. There's great quotes in this film.
There's some great ones. There's a lot of ones that I'm not gonna say.
Had you seen it before?
No, that's another thing. I had not seen it before, and I was taking some notes, but I was still letting it wash over me.
Yeah.
I wasn't fully because with Magnolia, I'd seen it so much before that I knew which quotes I loved from it and which would stick out, so I would take those down. This time, it's still quite fresh, quite raw.
So what did you think?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. It's just a really solid, well-made movie with a good story. And I'm a movie making nerd, and I like watching out for the direction and stuff. And there was nothing I could point out that was like specific tactics or things in the direction like I wanted to talk about with Magnolia last week, but we didn't get around to it because we talked about so much else. But with this, there were some shots that I was like, oh, that's a great shot, that's a great shot. There's some stuff with the lighting. Like throughout it, Virgil is constantly framed with the shadows of bars and cages, and he's sitting in the cop car sometimes, and the shadows are casting across his face. And it's really, really great stuff. And then at one point, later on, when Gillespie is realizing that he needs to work against the system he's been put in, he is framed through the bars of the cop car. The same place where Virgil was sitting towards the beginning of the movie, but then also is this clear shot of his face that I don't know if it was intentional, but I was just thinking about the shots of Virgil in the car and how it's like this parallel. Virgil's living under the shadow of all this oppression, and then Gillespie is waking up to the fact that he is stuck in this system himself that is a different type of cage in some ways.
Well, I think it's important to start from the beginning.
Yes, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Please, talk about In the Heat of the Night.
So, In the Heat of the Night is a 1967 film directed by Norman Jewison. Did I say that right?
Norman Jewison. I believe that's right.
And in the film, you follow a character called Virgil Tibbs, who is a black cop who's visiting his mother down south, and he gets involved with the police down there who are investigating a homicide that they initially think he committed, but then he can easily prove that he wasn't there because he's smarter than everybody else in the fucking town. And then you follow Tibbs and Gillespie throughout the film as they try to solve this murder down south. Now, this is my second time watching this film.
Okay.
I haven't seen it since the first time I watched it, and
When was that?
I can't quite remember. It's a few years ago now.
Yeah.
So it was interesting going back. But one of the more interesting things is that I used to have this thing where if I watched anything like 12 Years a Slave,
Yeah.
it would piss me off.
Okay.
I would need some time
Sure.
to not be around white people.
Yeah.
This film didn't make me feel like that. And I don't quite remember if I felt the same way the first time.
Yeah.
Because I found it so funny. Like how boy
Yeah.
is used as such a slur
the stank on it is real intense in this
I
movie.
think we need to bring it back. We need to bring Boy back.
For everyone, or like,
I mean, we'll decide who
I think it's-
who's it for.
but like equal opportunity.
Yeah, equal
think
opportunity Boy.
If we're gonna bring it back, it's got to be a behavior and not like a type of person.
I was
not
more
a
hurt
race.
by that slur than the N word.
Yeah.
And it took a while for the N word to drop. There was a certain point where I was like, when's the N word gonna drop? There's a lot of boys, but then when it started dropping it, it's almost like the director went, ease of it,
Yeah, absolutely.
and then start dropping it. But there's a. Let's start from the beginning. So
Sure.
you've got Officer Sam,
Sam Cooke, just
who's driving around the town, and he's creeping on this woman, which
we later find out is a 16-year-old girl.
By the way, I was like, them 16-year-olds are different. Because
Well-
she was a diva.
Well, I'm not sure the actress was 16, but
The way she was behaving, just sat there.
this was a kid in the South who clearly had some, wasn't a great place to grow up for a lot of people.
Yeah, but Sam is just driving around and he sees this woman naked in her house, just enjoying the summer air. And I don't blame him for it. Like, if you leave your window wide open like that, you know what you're doing.
Well, unless I'm mistaken, she plays into it too.
Oh, yeah.
It's a thing for her. It's just that we later find out that she's 16, and that casts a whole different shade on it. But I mean, yeah, I'm sure that happened plenty back in the day.
Plenty of times.
Still happens.
But he's driving around the town, then he sees a body on the ground, which turns out to be Colton.
This great shot when we're following him in the car, and the car stops, and we haven't seen the body yet, but we know he's seen it. He's driving through this alley, and the car comes to a stop, and the camera does this like sped up. The whole footage is sped up as it zooms in on the back headlights of the car as the brakes turn on, and it's just this incredible, like, we've been setting up the tone, the vibe of this small town, which the movie does a great job of. It feels a lot like this.
I do have to ask,
Yeah.
do those small towns still exist today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely,
Yeah.
they do.
Because I thought he was too quiet when he was driving around, because there was no one walking about.
No, yeah.
I mean, it's a tiny town, but still.
Those definitely still exist. There might be a few people out and about in the Main Street area where they find the body, but no, that definitely exists. And that's the just constant quiet oppressiveness that the movie does a great job of creating, that, like, you can feel that. You can feel like it's, I mean, I'm a city boy, so maybe I'm talking out my ass, but when I've been in small towns like this, it feels like there's a dome over the town, that it's like, this is its own little world, and it operates by different rules than the outside world. And the people are still people, but their environment is just different.
See, I like that, though.
Yeah.
I like that. It's a bit like, I mean, you've never seen this, but Vampire Diaries.
Sure.
Where it's a small town, and everyone goes to the same school, everyone knows each other, and it's just friendly. Well, to some extent, to certain people, not
Yeah.
everyone.
There's a point where things fall off the deep end, but the atmosphere can be nice. Like watching Civil War the other week. That town they go into where time is just frozen and no one in the town is paying attention to the Civil War going on outside. Those towns exist, absolutely, and the atmosphere is so charming. Until you start to look past it and it feels a bit dystopian because it's too charming all the time.
that is true. Yeah, nothing's perfect. You need to smell what the bullshit is.
Mm-hmm.
But then he finds the body,
Yes.
and he's got no ID. And then you get to meet the Chief, Gillespie.
Chief Gillespie.
Which, his suggestion was, I got the impression from the Chief that he just wanted to get this done and dusted as quick as possible.
And these cops are so bad at their jobs. They're just like, oh, we got someone we can pin it on? Great, let's wrap it up.
Because his suggestion of it's a hitchhiker or somebody, go to the train station. Whoever you see, that's the guy.
That's the one.
And then that's where you meet Virgil Tibbs, played by Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier.
Which, by the way, you have two contrasting performances between the two.
Yeah.
And I enjoy both of them deeply. Did you know that the actor, Rod Steiger, who plays Gillespie, is in The Waterfront?
I looked that up last night, yeah, on The Waterfront.
Yeah.
He's Brando's brother, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been ages since I've seen that movie. I don't remember it super well, but...
He's such a fantastic actor.
He's great. He was like a big method guy when it was coming up in America, especially in Hollywood, right there with Brando.
Yeah, but no one talks about Rod, do they?
No.
I wonder why. Is it the way he looks?
He's not the most marketable face, exactly, but he's a really fantastic actor.
Lasted longer than James Dean?
But no, that's because James Dean died tragically.
You shouldn't be laughing, Max. Why are you laughing?
I was just laughing.
That's not funny.
The fact that
That's
I have to
not
make
funny.
that distinction.
Was he not your age when he died?
He might have been younger than me. I don't know.
Oh my god, that's tragic. Let's move on.
Okay. Yes, Rod Steiger, fantastic performance. You're saying about their contrasting performances.
He does this thing where he speeds up when he's given direction to the officers, and he speeds up his commands. Oh, he repeats them fast. And I was just thinking, is that in the script or did he add that? Because it's the repetition that was like, I don't know if the writer would add that, or if it's him. Because I read also that he clashed with a lot of his directors.
Yeah, apparently he lost work because of that later in his life. But that would make sense if he is a method guy doing, improving things, repeating lines, making it more naturalistic, because a lot of movies back when this one came out, they just weren't written that way. Like, that wasn't a style that was in people's heads until actors like Brando and Rod Steiger started doing this loose improvisational thing.
What do you think of Poitier's performance?
Fantastic. Interesting that you said it contrasts with Rod Steiger's, because I thought it does too. It's such like a classically trained. He knows exactly where the camera is at all times, so he can move and look in just the right way. He delivers his lines with such clarity and such intent. It's like watching a Shakespeare actor.
Yes.
He's just so sharp with it.
There's a stillness
Yes.
in his character. And it's quite interesting. The moment he loses it is when they're coming out of Endicott's greenhouse, and he's begging to stay on the case. And that's when he's like, there was something that happens midway in the film when Gillespie is trying to get Virgil to stay, which was a back and forth of like, stay, leave, stay, leave. But trying to appeal to his ego of trying to prove everyone wrong and prove that he's the smartest person out of everyone. Like, that thing inside him, which makes sense if you're like a black boy growing up in Philadelphia and his mom lives in the town. So I had that question. It's never addressed in the movie. Did he grow up in Philadelphia and his mom moved there, or was he from this area? Exactly.
So he knows exactly what it is, and he has to throw himself back into it.
And he doesn't want to. And they catch him, bringing him for questioning, and then he just brings out his badge, tells them, "I'm Philadelphia police."
Oh, it's great when the chief has seen the badge and he just calls Sam Cooke back into the office. He's like, "Sam, would you take a look at that right there?" And Sam flips it over and looks at it, and Rod Steiger just goes, "Yeah, yeah."
it's so crazy to me how he just picked him up without doing any due diligence, nothing, and just went, yeah, he did it. He's black.
Oh yeah, it's
But the weird thing is, I think that still happens today.
oh absolutely, and especially in a town like this, it's just like we need something to pin this on, and we have an easy target for ourselves. It's terrible, but it's very, very true.
Did you watch it and go, I wish we were back in those days?
No, of course
No, be
not.
honest, Max. It's fine.
No.
It's fine. It's fine.
I didn't. I don't know how to convince you about this. I don't wish we were back in the Jim Crow era.
It's fine. They were throwing everything out. But the chief asks him to help out with the case.
Mm-hmm.
He says no. And Gillespie rejects the offer as well.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do it. He wants to wrap this thing up and put it away.
But what was interesting is that it felt like he rejected the offer because the Philadelphia chief proposed it. When it was his own idea,
Yes.
he was like, yeah, help out.
Gillespie's character throughout the whole thing, he always needs to feel like he's in control of whatever situation he's in. He doesn't want any charity. He doesn't want any pity. He says that later to Virgil. He doesn't want any pity. And it's something Virgil clocks on fast, too, throughout the beginning when he's getting dragged into this. He keeps having these reveals and rug pulls that really screw over Gillespie and the local cops. But he keeps it level, and he keeps throwing little bones to Gillespie throughout it. Like when he's investigating the body, and he talks about how rigor mortis has clearly already set in because of this medical thing, and he looks at the chief and goes, "Isn't that right, chief?"
Because he knows he has to make them look small.
Yeah.
So they'd be like, yeah, it's your idea. You already knew, right? Yeah. You already knew.
Does not want to tip these guys off.
But I love that scene when he was examining the body, because it was the shot of just his hands going through the body and how gentle he was. And you could tell, just through that sequence, you could tell he's done this many times.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he's doing. He's good at his fucking job. Just through that.
Yep.
Which is fucking smart.
And the movie approaches his work that way. He's focused on the details. Again, when he's inspecting the car later on, it's this like POV shot, and it's just looking at all the details of the car, taking it all in, the upholstery, until we finally see the bloodstain.
Would you ever be a homicide cop?
No, that seems like a lot of dark work that I'm not really interested in. But in my head, I could imagine myself doing it, but it would probably be much less like a TV show than I'm envisioning.
FBI?
That depends on what I would be doing in the FBI. Would I be like investigating serial killers, or would I be
Oh yeah, you have to
like,
investigate the serial killer.
would I be staging
That's the most
assassinations
interesting
of
one.
civil rights leaders, or
No. The investigation of serial killers. That's the most interesting one.
yeah, probably also the darkest.
Because I feel like you have to be a specific kind of person to love that job.
I would be a bit worried if anyone loved that job.
Well, think of the character in Longlegs,
Yeah.
the woman. The character in Mindhunter, the guy.
Yep.
They love the job.
Yep. It takes I imagine it takes a certain slightly detached someone who can compartmentalize and just get lost in the details of the puzzle in front of them instead of, being reminded of the harsh reality of it.
Have you ever seen a dead body?
Yes, at funerals, but not like
You've gone
a killed body. Yeah, I've been to funerals.
I can't.
No?
They're just tough.
Sure.
They're just tough.
I don't enjoy funerals. I wouldn't want my funeral to be like the funerals I've gone to.
I want mine to be like a party.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting cremated,
Okay.
so it's gonna be a party. Just
Yeah,
Enjoy.
a celebration of my life.
Yeah,
And
don't
that's what
cry.
it should be. I'd cry if you want. I would be a little offended if no one cried. I don't want a few people to cry for me. But then laugh about it later on, you know?
I'll be more offended if no one showed up.
That would sting.
But then Mrs. Colbert
Mrs. Colbert.
shows up. And this was the interesting thing, right? Whenever a white character first interacted with Tibbs, it's almost like social engineering, where they were just racist off the bat with no evidence to support why. It's almost like learned behavior.
Yeah.
There's no reason. She's racist to him. It's like, get this Negro out of here. I don't want to talk to him. And then when he proves that he knows what he's doing, she's begging for him to stay on the case. I would have said no. Fuck that shit.
Well, Virgil
Fuck
tries.
that shit.
Virgil doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, he does say no many times.
It's you mentioned it's that interesting tug of war with him and Gillespie of not wanting to be involved, needing the other person, not wanting the other person around. It's great character dynamic.
But then there's a big chase sequence with another suspect that they think did it.
Yep.
Who's a white guy this time.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting how Virgil realized that he wasn't the guy because he just looked at his arms and realized, oh, he's left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't have done it because the suspect was right-handed. And no one clocked up. And Gillespie's reasoning for him being a suspect was that he had money that he stole from Colbert's wallet.
Yeah.
Which was so shoddy. What a shoddy reasoning to pin on somebody. But he stays in jail throughout. He never gets out.
I can understand having him as a suspect because having the dead guy's wallet with the money in it is like, well, that's not a great look for anyone right after a murder.
I mean, he's dead. He doesn't need it anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes it look like this guy killed the guy for his wallet and took because there's like $900 in this guy's wallet apparently.
Well, I think all I'm asking for is a little bit of due diligence.
Oh, absolutely.
Investigate.
Yeah.
You know, don't just make presumptions and accuse people. Even with the white guy, I felt sorry for him. I was like, he didn't do it. He did the exact same thing. He was racist to Virgil.
Mm-hmm.
And when he realized that Virgil was on his side, they're kicking it, cracking jokes.
Yeah.
They could be friends in another life. But Virgil's just using him, which was sad. The way
Virgil is using him.
Yeah.
Interesting. Throughout it, he does have this detached attitude towards the whole town. And for pretty much everyone, any connection he feels does feel put on. Like it's another one of his tools to get the job done. Which I can understand. Like, he probably wouldn't want to be around that town. It would just not be a fun place to be. And he wants to get back to his job back in Philly anyway. But that relationship he has with everyone is fascinating throughout. It's interesting you find it sad.
No, because I think I always find it sad how people can easily be manipulated and not realize it. But at the exact same side, I realize that he has to do it so that he gets the information he wants.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I told you about Homeland. When Claire Danes sleeps with an underage kid just so she can get information.
Right.
Because CIA is some bad motherfuckers. Like, shit. 16-year-olds are getting fucked too for info? I don't mind that.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of that.
I mean,
There's a lot of ethical complications there. But I don't
it's
know.
looking after your country, Max. It's looking...
The CIA has not always done what is best for America.
Okay. Are you a patriot?
I believe I am, yes, but
Okay,
not
let me ask you this.
But in a specific way. That word has been co-opted a lot.
Okay, but let me ask you this,
Yeah.
right? You say you're a patriot. you have to sleep with a 14-year-old girl to get information that stops an attack on U.S. soil. Would you do it?
I would really
you
prefer
do it?
not to.
You're not patriotic enough. You're not patriotic enough.
Yes, my morals versus my patriotism, I would have some real soul searching to do there.
See, that's
I'm not
why
sure.
you have to be a specific person to do these jobs.
And if the CIA was ordering me to do it, that would just I would feel even worse about it
you
because I
have to
don't
do what
trust
you
the
have
CIA.
to do, though. You have to do what you have to do, though.
But there's other things to do.
But that's what I mean. It's the manipulation that's involved in the job at whatever level. Whether you could be a policeman or a spy, it doesn't really matter. Because I sort of feel like manipulation happens at all different kinds of levels. Like even when the mayor is trying to get Gillespie to keep Virgil,
Yes.
he manipulates him.
Oh yeah. Which is an interesting thing to point out that Gillespie is also new in this town and in this system. He's been recently moved here. And stationed
Was
as the
he
chief.
recently moved, or he was recently made chief?
I think he's recently moved. I don't think he's been in the town long because that's a good point. I don't know.
Because the mayor does say you've been a chief. You're a new chief.
I
Or
think
something along those lines.
yeah, I think he is new in the town, and that's why like no one else has ever been in his apartment in his house that he says later on because he's only been here
Oh, we'll get
for
to that.
so long.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
And then the wife pleads for them to find the killer with Virgil's help. There was something that the suspect that they caught said, which made me laugh when he was like, "What are you doing wearing a white man's clothes?"
Yeah.
Which cracked me up. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think black... Okay. I think also, this is the thing, is that there's been... You look at times like those and you laugh. And you kind of go, oh, this is so fucking crazy.
It's ridiculous.
But it's so real.
They believed it fully.
Would you have been different if you lived in those times?
I don't know if that's something. I don't know if that's something anyone can answer because we are a product of our surroundings and our upbringings. So I would have been raised in a totally different environment. I don't think racism is something that's coded in anyone genetically. I think it's taught and it's learned in the environment. So,
Because how long did the Jim Crow era last?
well, slavery was abolished in 1864, right after the Civil War. But the Civil Rights Act wasn't passed until 1964.
Wow.
And then there were a few other Civil Rights Acts over the preceding years that cleared up other things. But the main one that was like equal voting rights, no more segregation, all that stuff, that was 1964, signed by Lyndon B. Johnson. Mostly as a way to quell protests and things in America so that he could focus on the Vietnam War. He was not,
He didn't care.
he wasn't an ally.
He didn't care.
It was a
a
tool for him.
means to an end.
Yeah.
Which is fine, you know. I guess if you do end up getting it, it doesn't really matter how you got it.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
I think that's something people could do well to remember. But anyway, yes, Jim Crow. So after slavery was abolished, except for people in prison, that little caveat, it's a real important little asterisk there in that amendment. There was the Reconstruction period after the Civil War where freed black people were trying to establish themselves, and then, it didn't go with redlining started, and Jim Crow, there was one wave of it right after the Civil War in reaction to it, and then the other Jim Crow era that people talk about is 1900s up until the 60s.
Wow. 60 years. Wow.
60 to 100 years, you can say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even then, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, it's not like that solved things. This movie takes place after the Civil Rights Act was passed, and yet it's still like this because you can't legislate racism away.
It's fascinating because of what we said about like it's learned behavior, and when it's almost like when they realize his worth with all the characters, when they realize his worth, they change their tune every single time,
Mm-hmm.
except Endicott, which we'll get to.
God, just the worst.
But Officer Gillespie appeals to Tibbs with the factory jobs for the black people, and he did not give a fuck. He did not. You looked at him. He was like, "You think I care if other black people have jobs?"
He even says, like Gillespie says, think about all those jobs for your people, and Virgil says, not my people, your people.
Exactly. Because at that, and I don't think it's just from that era. I think it's just in human nature where if you can look at it now, if you look at it as, this is my community, this is my tribe, I'm going to look after it. That's your tribe, you look after it. And I think it's sort of weird now, maybe in an altruistic sense, we sort of have the need, or we feel the need to sort of help other people.
Mm.
But deep down, we're more concerned about our immediate circle of tribe first,
Yes.
before we even think about other people.
Past a certain number, the idea of all those other people becomes abstract. There's like, some people can only actually really know less than 100 people at once before people start to be, sidelined off in our ability to comprehend a full person.
But the thing that I found interesting is that when he mentioned the jobs for for the blacks in the town, and he doesn't care, but he mentions his ego.
Yeah.
That's when that perked his attention.
When he challenges him to say, you think you're better than all of us? You couldn't miss this opportunity to prove us wrong. Go on. He dangles the bait, and Virgil, he knows he shouldn't, but he takes the bait.
He takes it.
Because it is too appetizing.
Because he knows none of them can solve it.
Yeah.
None of them can solve it. And so it's a trilogy of films. This is the first one.
Yes.
The second one is called They Call Me Mr. Tibbs. And the third one, I'm forgetting the name of the third one.
I have them somewhere here. Yes, the sequel, They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, and then the third one, The Organization.
I've never seen the other two.
They are not directed by Norman Jewison. They're directed by other people.
Did you also write this?
No, this was written by, what's the guy's name? It's a fun name. His last name's Siliphant. Siliphant, like a silly elephant. Where is it? The first one, written by Sterling Siliphant. Adapted from John Ball's novel of the same name that came out in 1965. But then the sequels were not written by Mr. Siliphant either, nor directed by Norman Jewison.
Yeah, I think...
Completely different teams the whole time, except for Sidney Poitier.
I don't know how the other two are, but this team put out a great piece of work. The writing, the directing, the music. Quincy Jones
Yes.
did the soundtrack.
Oh, it's so good.
And Ray Charles did the theme music.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, God, when he kicks in at the beginning with Ray Charles, I feel like, obviously, I've never been in the 60s.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was in the 60s. I don't know what it is about that era with the music that just transports you back to that time when you've never lived in that time. You've never... Our idea of it is based on images and sounds we've formed in our head. But sort of like the reality of what that era was like is alien to us, to an extent.
Yeah. Obviously, media forms a huge web of impressions on us about what different eras are like. Like the movie Grease is a nostalgic look at the 50s that was made in the 70s. We have so much like Stranger Things about the 80s and stuff these days. But this movie, that music and just the aesthetic of it put me in the 60s. But the thing that got to me was that the rest of it, all the dynamics, the attitude, like I said before, the feeling of the town felt just like right now.
Isn't that strange?
People are still people. We may have different clothes and we drive different cars than we used to,
but we're still the same.
It's still so human.
We're still the same. I think, that's a great point. It's still so human. And when I've seen movies from that era, there's something so human about all of them that they access the human condition. It's almost like 3:10 to Yuma had it yesterday, especially with Christian Bale's character.
Yeah,
like him just wanting to do something to impress his son, so that he doesn't look pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God, that. We're gonna deviate for a second. We've already deviated, but we're gonna deviate for 1 second. That scene when he's dying, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And he says, I got shot before I even got on the field by my own man. Imagine telling that to your own son. It's like, fuck.
It's heavy.
What can you tell your son? How is he already thinks you're pathetic. So what else are you going to tell him? And then just get into that point where Russell Crowe just accepts it and is like, okay, I'll go. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
But that thing of the human condition of everything that we feel, the regrets. Did we talk about regret last week? I think we did.
We did.
It's such a universal thing, isn't it? Regret.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I said last week, I think regret is how we know we've grown, and I think that is why we feel it so much. I think a healthy life is full of regrets. And non-regrets, but...
How many regrets do you think you've got right now?
I've got quite a lot. I mean, I'm not upset with how my life has turned out or where it's going, but there's definitely things that, like, yeah, I would have done that differently. I wish I hadn't done that or said that. Plenty of that. Plenty of those times.
Wonder how many I've got. Maybe... no, it's a lot. I think you just sort of accept it. You just...
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it except...
just move on.
Except feel them. And I don't think it's good to ignore or deny the regrets. It's just...
Yeah.
Don't dwell on it. It's about you find the balance of it.
But back to Mr. Tibbs, who stays on the case, decides to help this poor white people.
Help these stupid racist honkies out.
He ends up staying, and this is there's a few instances where you see other black characters.
Yeah.
A couple of instances. And one of them is when they go to a black mechanic to sort of set Mr. Tibbs up with a car. And I found it so endearing how the guy asked him, do you have a place to stay? And he was like, I'll find a hotel. He was like, no, you're staying with us.
Yeah.
No questions asked. No money exchange. It's like, you're one of us. Doesn't matter where you're from. You're one of us. And that's why it's so sad during this era, because I think when you really think about it, there were so many people who lived through it who never really got to see the potential fulfilled because they never got the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so many things we probably didn't benefit from because of that. But I thought that was a nice moment of just human compassion, of just kindness. Just kindness is free. But then you have the first nigger. Don't say that.
I'm not gonna. I wasn't planning on it.
The first N-word gets dropped, which I was waiting for.
Oh, it was inevitable.
I was waiting for it. I was kind of disappointed. There was a lot of boys but I was waiting for the N word to get dropped because I wanted to see who was gonna. Gillespie never dropped it.
No, I think he did.
When did he drop it?
It's in the line that sets up "They Call Me Mr. Tibbs." It's around there. I'm pretty certain that I remember him saying it because I was like, "Whoa, okay."
Because
They're not holding back with this guy.
Well, Call Me Mr. Tibbs. I thought it was.
It might not be immediately before that, but it's in that scene.
It was about Virgil. What kind of name is Virgil? What do they call you in Philadelphia? And they said, "Call me Mr. Tibbs."
There's definitely a boy in there when he's setting up that line.
He dropped the N word.
I think he did. Maybe I'm completely
Maybe you being
misremembering.
racist
I'm being racist. Wait, against who?
against Gillespie. Just accused.
by assuming because he's a white, clearly racist police officer, that
Yeah.
he must have
He
called
must
him
have
the
dropped.
N-word at some point.
He must have dropped the N word. No way did he not. He definitely said the boy, but the one, even with the N word, there weren't many N words that were dropped.
Not a whole lot. They were powerful when they hit.
Yeah, they did. It wasn't a Quentin film.
No.
It wasn't a Quentin film. But they go and see Endicott, who owns a cotton plantation.
Jeez, it's real. They show you the machine, the harvester that's eating up all the cotton, and they show you all the workers. And then, God, what does Gillespie say to him? Gillespie says something to Virgil about, like, I guess it's not for everyone, huh? Or something like that. Some really pointed...
You know, I was looking at the black monkey at the entrance of the house.
Oh, yeah, that... What is it, like a... I can't remember. Gollywog figure or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And he was at the entrance of the house, and I thought, oh, that's a nice little reminder of know your place.
Yeah.
But he's extremely racist, but he knows Virgil. He's aware of it because he knows it's from Philadelphia. He knows it's there to work the case.
Yeah.
But then you have one of the most, I think, iconic moments in all of cinema.
Oh, yes.
Because I don't think... I would have to do some research, but I don't think there'd been a film where you saw a white guy slap a black guy, and then the black guy immediately slapped him back.
Apparently this scene, Norman Jewison was worried when showing it to test audiences because some of the audience, they were laughing like the movie was a comedy. And then it got to that scene and people shut the fuck up and there were gasps. He was like, okay, no, we got a movie on our hands. This is working. Apparently in some theaters where there was black people and white people in the audience, when it got to that scene, there would be this, he said, like, you could tell the demographics of the theater because one side was laughing their asses off and the other side was dead silent.
Do you think that, I already know the answer to this.
Yeah.
But, in real time, how many black people slapped the white man? Or had the courage to slap the white man around that time? What do you think? Is there a number? There must have been some.
Oh yeah, for certain there were some.
There were repercussions, definitely.
That's the thing.
It's only with Virgil that there's... What does he say? It's like, Gillespie? Yeah. You saw it?
Mm-hmm.
I saw it. Well, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. I'm going to remember that. There was a time when I would have shot you. And I was like, ooh! What a threat.
It was just vicious. Nasty.
What a threat of know your place. But also the power in that, because, see, I know I was joking around with you, like, how would you react if you were in that era? But I asked myself that question as well. Of like, how would I react if I was in this era? Would I band all the other black people together and be like, yeah, we need to fuck the system, get out of here?
Yeah.
Would I be an Uncle Tom? Would I just do nothing? which person would I be?
I think we are who we are because of how we got here. And so if we were in a different time, we would be a different person entirely. If you grew up back then. It would be different if you were like transported back in time back then, and you had to live the rest of your life. Because then you would know how it turns out. Would you then become this revolutionary?
Shit. Okay, hold on.
Because you know what direction it's going in?
Which time period would you go back to, if you could?
Me, I have it a lot easier. I have a lot more sort of real estate
Okay.
historically.
Wait, okay. Are you saying you're going to the most profitable time for white people?
No. Well, I would go back to probably 1970s New York.
Isn't there a lot of drugs and... Isn't
It's
that
not
when
the
AIDS
best.
started?
It's not. Maybe it's not the best in New York. I would keep careful because I would know, I would know what's going on. But that's also when so much of the culture was forming. All the theater in New York back then. Ooh. All the music. I would love that vibe. I would have to deal with the rest of, all the drugs and crime in New York and Reagan and all that stuff. But if I had to go back in time, that's the time I would go to. Because I'm also not going back before there's penicillin and stuff. What about you?
I see, because time hasn't been tied to the blacks, I would have to go back to a time when civilization hadn't connected with one another. So go back to the Egyptians.
The Egyptians, sure.
Yeah. Just probably can't communicate with them.
No, you would have to learn their language. It's not like...
But would I be considered a god?
You would have to bring some kind of knowledge with you of...
I think that's the thing. Yeah, go back in time. Prove that I'm a god.
You would also have to not be too much of a threat, though, is the problem. Because if you bring back some advanced science... Like, if you show an iPhone to someone from the BC they're going to kill you.
Yeah, they'll think you're a witch.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. Adam and Eve? During that time?
I'm not sure they necessarily existed, but that would probably have been...
If they did exist in the Garden of Eden.
10,000-ish years ago, maybe?
Maybe, I don't know. But around that time. Yeah, time hasn't been... See, normally I would say the 60s. Because the music, the Rat Pack, it's great. You've got Quincy Jones and Frank Sinatra working together.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the no blacks and Jim Crow. I'm not a fan.
It depend on where you wanted to be, and there would always be something to deal with. It would be better in some places than others.
Yeah, I think New York.
Yeah.
New York has always been sort of like the hub, hasn't it?
It's because it's got a little bit of everyone. Everyone can find their community.
Yeah, maybe New York 60s.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I did, yeah.
We've gotten massively derailed.
Yeah, yes, let's get back. So...
On that slap scene, it reminded me of... There is an issue of the comic Strange Adventures, which started coming out in 2019. It's like the recent run of it. One written by Tom King. DC Comics, Mr. Terrific gets transported to the world where Adam Strange goes to and all that sci-fi pulp drama that DC has going on. But basically there's all this stuff going on and Mr. Terrific is questioning the regime and Adam Strange is old and dictatorial and authoritarian and Mr. Terrific keeps challenging him and at one point Adam Strange slaps Mr. Terrific across the face and Mr. Terrific slaps him right back. And for anyone who doesn't know, Mr. Terrific is a DC comic character. He's a black man. He's a scientist. He's got all this advanced tech. And he wears this awesome-ass jacket with fair play printed on the sleeves. And so it's this great panel that's clearly like an homage to In the Heat of the Night. And slaps him back. And Mr. Terrific just says, "The fuck you think fair play means? You slap me, I slap you." And it's just so cool. And so seeing this scene the original of this, the power in that moment of just like, these honkies don't know what they're dealing with.
See, that's where something like this, I do wish I was there in real time to sort of experience it with everybody else. Because that would have been a conversation that people would be having, and people would have different opinions about what they saw. It would be, I wonder how people reacted when this came out. Whether it was, I guess in my mind, because it's so culturally relevant, whether people saw it and went, oh, maybe we need to think about how we're treating these blacks. Or if it was just like, oh, you know, I saw a funny film, that black guy wasn't that great, but, you know, it's fun.
It was a very successful movie, and like, it got nominated for a bunch of Oscars. Poitier won the Oscar for it. So it did get acclaim and acknowledgement. I'm not sure how many people in the general audience thought about it. I'm not sure how many people in the general audience think about movies in general.
Yeah, that's true. So then we have the car chase to the warehouse.
Yeah. Ugh.
Old school.
Dukes of Hazzard-esque.
Yeah. But I sort of feel like old school car chases are always interesting. Because it's the same principles in any car chase, but because the equipment is just different, like the cars are different, so the way they move is a little bit, what's the word? I want to say gangly, but that's not the right word.
I get what you mean. There's less fine control.
Yeah, there's less fine, and you can even see it, like with the turn.
Yeah.
When the car just stalls and they have to like reverse and go back. But that's when the N-words were really being thrown out. But when they surrounded him in the warehouse, I just this might be my first critique, but it's not even like a real critique because I don't know what other way they would have done it. But when they were trying to hit him, and it looked so pathetic. How he was he was clearly told, yeah, you need to swing back and forth.
Swing the pipe around.
Yeah, swing the pipe around.
Don't really hit them, though.
Yeah, they're probably not even there. And you guys do the exact same thing on your single shot. Yeah, I was just looking at it, I was like, oh, it's funny how we've come so far now that scene today, it would probably be some like John Wick type of shit.
It'd be like Rebel Ridge or something.
Yeah. Movie. Like, wait, Rebel Ridge, the Netflix one?
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
I've seen a bit of it. I didn't finish it though.
Is it good?
I was enjoying it. It's kind of, this John Wick action movie. This black guy ends up in a small town in the South, and the cops are trying to go after him, and he has to special forces his way out of it.
Okay, I might check it out.
Yeah. But it's taking this situation and turning it into an action movie. Absolutely, this scene in the heat of the night.
But Gillespie shows up.
Yeah,
and manages to stop it. And this is when you actually get like some real physical stuff from any of them, because he starts beating down on all the guys. Of which I didn't believe it because he's a little bit overweight.
He's imposing in presence, not in figure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, these guys are young. They shouldn't be looking at this guy. But there's something fascinating that I do want to ask you.
Yeah.
Which is the attitude towards police officers.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to, in the film, they seem to have a respect for each other. But also, when he shows up at the warehouse, they all just sort of stop because they know he's shown up. Is that, I mean, I sort of look at it in this day and age, and I don't feel as if police officers here are necessarily feared or respected.
In this country, I'd say the respected, or feared or respect. It's that kind of respect where it's not actual respect, it's fear. It's that acknowledgement of the power that this person wields over you. There's less of that here from what I've experienced. In the U.S., I think it's the guns. The guns make a big difference.
Yeah, when you see someone carrying a gun, you kind of need to take a step back. Although, were any of them carrying guns?
Not these rednecks.
But what about the police officers? Because Tibbs didn't have a gun throughout.
No, I'm interested. The movie never addressed that. If I was Tibbs and I had to deal with this small town and I was stuck there, I would ask for a gun immediately.
You would, but if you were Gillespie, would you give a black man a gun?
That would probably be an uphill battle to get it from Gillespie, but I would at least try.
You're not giving a black man a gun in your town.
That's because that's the thing. I don't know how would people react to that. They wouldn't immediately assume he's a cop. They would think he's this tall black guy in a suit with a fucking handgun on his hip. That would be. There's no real great way to navigate that town.
It's sort of dangerous to be a black man with a gun around that time.
Absolutely.
You immediately look suspicious. Without intending to be.
In some of those towns, it's dangerous to be a black person just walking down the street.
God, your country, man.
It's...
Your country, man. Can't wait to see it. Cannot wait to see it. I want to see it for myself.
When we do the road trip, do you want to visit a town like this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be so fucking weird. I'm thinking about seeing people with guns.
Yeah, it happens.
And people are just casual about that. Like, they have a killing weapon on their holster.
There's definitely some places where the attitude's casual. I feel like most places, especially these days, anyone who's got a gun, it's like, oh, there's an element of danger in the situation now. Unless everyone else in the place is the type of person to have a gun that they carry around with them. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not like it's completely normal. It's just accepted everywhere that guns are a big thing in America.
The warehouse.
Yes.
They stop the fight. Gillespie tells him to leave. He won't leave. He wants till morning. It was interesting that he got Sam to retrace his route on the night of the murder. Because now that I'm thinking of it, I don't actually know why he made that decision. Because he already knew the route. He figured out that when Sam took the turn instead of going straight, he already knew that he was lying.
Yes.
So the purpose of taking the route, what did he want to see?
I can't remember. He explains it at one point. I can't remember exactly what he says. Because Sam changed his route to avoid going past the girl's house. Because he doesn't want to just deal with that situation on the record. Because then they arrest Sam the next morning.
Yes, they
based on that. But
no, they arrest him because he deposited $600.
Right.
Which Koba was missing.
And then Gillespie uses Sam lying as a thing. Well, he's suspicious for some reason, so I guess it must be this, because that's how these cops work.
Terrible officer. Terrible chief.
At one point, Gillespie keeps pushing back and he asks Virgil, why are you so sure that it's not this? And Virgil basically says, because of the details, because of certain things. But I was just thinking, because of the facts. Because of because it doesn't make any sense if you're just jumping to this conclusion. This isn't a logical argument you're making. It's just, we have someone, we can put it on them with minimal effort to just make it go away. And that's a case closed.
But they arrest Sam.
They arrest Sam.
And then we have this guy who shows up with this woman.
Birdie.
And he accuses Sam of getting his sister pregnant. Like, is that the woman from the window? Oh, turns out it is. Turns out she's 16. God damn. Now, he said it's rape at 16. Now,
Statutory rape, yeah.
I don't know what the age of consent is. I think it's 15 now.
What, in the UK?
Maybe. What is it in the States?
In the US, federally, it's 18, but there are certain laws state by state. I assume that when this movie came out in Mississippi, which this movie takes place, it was 18 because, or at least 17 because, yeah, Birdie, the girl's brother, says that that's rape, and so I think he means statutory rape because she's underage.
Yeah, it's still 16.
In the UK?
In the UK and in some states, it varies between 16 and 18.
Yeah. There used to be states that went even lower. And then there's also all the, like in Transformers 4 with the Romeo and Juliet card that the guy whips out.
Oh shit, yeah.
But that's Texas. That's Michael Bay. But so yeah, this, whether or not this girl was consensually having sex with this older man, who isn't Sam Cooke, we find out. It's this other redneck.
Which was a great reveal, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. But yeah, so the brother wants to go after him for statutory rape.
And Tibbs won't allow him.
Yes, because Tibbs knows that he doesn't know quite who it is, but he knows it's not Sam.
Now, how he somehow figures he must be the smartest black man in the North, because he somehow figures things out so quick. Even my brain is like taking a second to be like, okay, I'm catching up with you, because he goes back to the second suspect in the jail cell
Yeah.
and asks if he wants to get an abortion, who should he go to? And of course, it's a black woman you go to, not a white woman.
Mama Khalifa.
Which I don't know how I feel about that. What's that trying to say? What's that trying to say? What are you trying to say right there, Norman?
I don't
What are you trying to say right there?
know if it's trying to say anything specific. That's...
If you want an abortion, you go to the black woman in the town.
It depends. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's something to read into a whole lot.
But the girl,
Yeah.
I just didn't trust her. Nothing about her was like, oh, she is trustworthy.
She got crazy in her.
She got crazy in her.
It's a fucked up environment for a girl to grow up in.
I mean,
And I don't know what her family situation is like, but I can't imagine Birdie is a nice person to live with.
I mean, he looks old enough to be her dad.
Yeah.
And there's no mention of any parents.
No.
So, if she's 16 and she's walking around naked, my God. Imagine if that's your daughter. I guess when I think back to like the 60s and the 50s, in my head, there was a big religious movement within America of like, you have to be proper, you know. Wasn't there a period when they were showing kissing between characters and stuff like that?
It was the Hays Code, which ended briefly before this movie came out in the 60s, where, yes, you couldn't have... people had to kiss in like a certain way. You couldn't have two people on a bed if both of their feet were off the ground. One of them had to have their foot on the ground. You like couldn't show a toilet flushing on screen. Like Psycho, the Hitchcock movie, was one of the first movies to show a toilet flushing on screen.
Isn't that censorship? That's censorship.
Oh yes, absolutely. It was censorship.
Oh my God.
It was the Hays Code was I can't remember if it was a governmental thing, but it was basically movie theaters wouldn't show movies that weren't approved by the code. But then in the 60s, it was a few movies, Psycho included, and then like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf was one of the big ones that it broke all these code rules, but they were so good and they were getting talked about so much that people just went to see them anyway, and the code kind of fell apart. It just lost power then because people stopped buying into it and believing in it.
So we end up with Tibbs and Gillespie in Gillespie's house. And they're just kicking it. Tired from this case. And it's the first time we get the background into Gillespie.
Mm-hmm.
And what he admits, which was, I mean, it makes sense when you look at the character. And this sort of builds his whole character around it, is that he's lonely, he suffers from insomnia, he's got no wife, he's got no kids. He basically has nothing.
Very lonely.
And you go.
No, it just like he says to Virgil, "You're one of the lucky few. You're the only human being to be in this room."
Yeah. And that's when I started to feel sorry for him. Because I liked him. Because he was funny.
He's got heart.
Yeah.
He's a real racist, but he's got heart.
Yeah, but that moment of vulnerability, that's when I went, oh, okay. This goes back to what we said before about like the human condition of like, yeah, they're just lonely. But the thing with both of them is that he even asks Virgil, "Are you married? Have you ever been married? Ever been close?" And he's like, "Nope, close." And I started to think, are they both married to their job?
I think, yeah, that's a good parallel to draw between them. I think Gillespie was married at some point. I'm just assuming that from the vibe I got from it. I think he was married at some point. But that's gone. And if he had kids at all, he doesn't talk to them anymore.
Which is a sad existence.
Very lonely. It's when he says he says specifically Virgil is the first human being to be in that room, which means he's not even counting himself as a human being. He's not even thinking of himself that way.
Yeah, it's a sad scene because you start to, I mean, from Virgil's case, he's brilliant at his job, but he doesn't allow sort of like the loneliness aspect of it get to him. It's almost like, yeah, he accepts it. Like,
yeah,
he loves his job, and it'd be interesting if he has love interests in the other two films.
Yeah.
And see if his character develops in that way. Because I think that's definitely one of the things of like him loving his job too much to let go. Do you think you love your job too much?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't doing what I do. I do what I do because there's nothing else I could. I wouldn't have a good time. But
That's
like,
our future, Max.
do you mean am I so dedicated to my job that I let it affect my personal life?
Yeah.
Well, I think our
if you
job.
had to pick between the two, like an opportunity with your job or something in your personal life clashes, and you have to pick between the two.
It really depends. It depends on the job and what my life is like at that point. But I could see myself going either way, depending.
Because whenever that prospect of the job, well, the career, or something in the personal, when it sort of clashes, which one do you pick? And I honestly don't know what the answer would be. Because I think I'm like you. I'm like, depends what it is.
Absolutely.
Depends what it is. But also the thing of, can you go too far and not even realize that you've just been married to the job? Because I think we are married to our jobs. Because there's nothing else we can do. Or we'd want to do.
Yeah. for us, what we do is so voluntary, our choice, not responsible decisions.
Yeah.
It's it's one of those things where we have to sort of have blind faith. I think our job also though is unique in the amount of socializing it can involve, because it's all about dealing with people.
Yeah.
So it's easier to be fulfilled that way. But like a homicide cop who's completely dedicated, that's a dark life that person lives if they don't have a nice, loving other world to go back to at the end of the day. Earlier in the movie, Gillespie asks Virgil, so you're a homicide cop, huh? That mean you get to see a lot of dead bodies? You can get to, is what he says. And Virgil just says, yeah.
I think the idea of it appears cool. But then, at a certain point, like, imagine you're following a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing the bodies. Whatever happened to the bodies, you have to just sit with it. Look at it, examine it. It's like in Mindhunter, when the girl had the incision from the anus to the vagina.
I don't remember the details.
Yeah, it's pretty novel, but to see that constantly, it does. I do think that it probably does eat away at you.
It's
and
gotta.
doing this job, being a police officer, constantly, and the shit you have to deal with, it will get to you. It will get to you.
Of course.
So we get towards the end, and
Right, Virgil's visiting Mama Cleba.
well, was she Caribbean?
I think so.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
She definitely-
Again, this goes back. What's Noman trying to say? What is Noman trying to say right now?
I don't know if he's trying to say anything. Like, it's not an unrealistic thing that...
Are you saying Caribbean women perform abortion?
I'm not saying all Caribbean women perform abortions. I'm saying it's not unrealistic to imagine that some alternate medical person in a small town in the South could be Caribbean. That's not an unrealistic thing. They could be any
No,
number
it's
of
not
things.
unrealistic.
No. The choice to make it a Caribbean woman?
But okay. Are you saying it's not unrealistic because you've met some in real life, or because you've seen it perpetuated in media?
I've not personally met a Caribbean medicine woman in the small town.
Okay,
in
but
the South.
Pirates of the Caribbean. The
Yes.
Caribbean woman is into
No.
the shit.
That is sensationalized a bit because she is a literal ocean god. But I mean, throughout history, and the Jim Crow South especially, black people they couldn't rely on white doctors, so they had to have systems of their own in place.
So even the white women went to the black.
If it's a town like that and there's not many places you could get an abortion, probably.
So do you think in your new America that's going to come back?
I mean, almost certainly if the states that are trying to criminalize abortion keep pushing, then it's like drugs. It's not something you can make go away by making it illegal. It's going to still happen. It's just that now it's going to happen much less safely.
So a new economy can open up.
That's one way to describe it, I suppose.
I mean, business.
I mean, it's an economy that used to exist before Roe v. Wade was passed. And it was gnarly, and people died. Because it's not safe.
But they're at Mama Kaliba's store.
Mm-hmm.
And the white boys catch up to Virgil Tibbs. And it's the brother. He's ready to roll down. He's ready to put it all on the line. But then you see the little girl with a guy.
Yep.
Now, at first, I was like, who the fuck is that?
His face is covered in shadow. Beautiful use of shadows in this movie.
And then when you realize it's the diner guy,
Yep.
who's, I think in total, he's in 3 scenes. At the beginning, in the middle when they're going through the route, and then this scene.
Yep.
Which I thought perfect. Because I've seen it before, but it's been a while, so I didn't even remember who the father was. So when I saw it, I was like, oh shit, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
The script is fucking fantastic. The way the story is played out and structured is fucking fantastic. And that's a great reveal, in my opinion. Of which you find out that he's the father. He also killed Colbert.
Yep.
I didn't... The explanation, it made sense.
It was a little bit sort of neatly wrapped up.
Yeah,
like
it
the movie builds up the mystery to be much bigger than it ends up being.
Yeah. It was like... I was like, it makes sense, but then...
It's just a crime of opportunity. This guy was just impulsive and was alone with Colbert and was like, I'll knock him out to steal his money and pretend that we both got jumped, but hits him too hard.
I think it's the Endicott.
The Endicott connection.
Yeah, the Endicott connection. Because, I mean, he even mentions this in the film where he's like, it's his ego that was clouding him with Endicott. That's why he was pursuing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of wanted Endicott to be the one who did it.
I can't remember what is the explanation for that bit of fern root that connects them.
So he found it on his pants. When he was it his pants? When he was going through examining the body?
It might have been in the car.
In the car.
Yeah.
With the blood.
Yeah.
He found that, and then he assumed, because he knew where it grew.
Yeah.
Goes to Endicott. He's got a greenhouse. Sees the flower that's got whatever it's called. And then assumes that, oh, they must be connected. They were together.
Mm-hmm.
He must have gotten it when he was here, and that's where he killed him and stuff like that. But yeah, my ego wanted Endicott to be the one who did it, but that's my own prejudice.
Well, I mean, it would, if it just feels satisfying to be like, yeah, and it was that
because
plantation owner.
Yeah,
he deserves to go to prison. Absolutely, he does. But
yeah, but nothing happens to him.
Nothing happens to him. The movie, I think it really well. It sets up this feeling of a conspiracy because there's also the mayor that's chatting to Gillespie throughout it, being like, let's make this go away. He convinces him to bring Virgil onto the case. He's like, think of it this way. If he finds it, then you get the killer on a silver platter, and if he fails, then none of your responsibility. And it feels like Gillespie is clearly answering to the mayor and the town, the system that's in place, that's connected to Endicott and everything. So it almost feels like it's a True Detective-esque conspiracy behind it all. But it turns out it's not. It's just not. That's just not what's going on. Which is anticlimactic, but...
Still a good film.
Yeah.
One of the most important films of the 20th century, I would say. Probably one of the most important films in cinema.
Yeah.
It's got iconic quotes, iconic moments, great acting, great directing, great script, great music. Shot beautifully.
Oh, that opening shot where it's these out-of-focus lights as the credits, and then the focus just slowly sharpens in on this train coming into town. It's just... and it takes a long... It's like a minute long. That's just so well set up.
There's I appreciate movies like these because there's a message within them, which I don't. Well, I guess it's the thing of like, do you want your movies to have any messages? Sometimes, not all the time. But there's this thing like what we said before about people's attitudes around that time, how inept the police are, how it's unfair, the system is unfair to many people, not just black people, but there were a few white people more white people was suspected of the crime and got arrested
Yeah.
with no proof. All because to get it done, which unfortunately I sort of feel still happens today.
For sure.
And that's it for this week. And
I've got more to talk about.
oh, you got more?
I got more to talk about. Well, a few things I just want to run.
Okay, hold on. Okay, scratch what I just said.
Okay.
Go on.
We're still good. Briefly, I wanted to talk about the scene between Virgil and Mama Kaliba when he's connecting with her as another black person in this town, but then he also flips a bit on her and says, "Don't make me put you away." There's white time in prison, and then there's black time in prison. So and it ties into that thing earlier of he's saying, it's not my people, it's your people. He understands the connection he has there, but he still doesn't fully relate with it. He's identifying more as a cop than as another black person in this system.
You know what? This heads into an important discussion, which I don't necessarily think you're qualified to have, Max.
Sure.
But for black people, especially, which I have noticed, and maybe have I noticed it within myself at certain times, but it goes back to the identity politics.
Yeah.
Like, what's your true identity? And there's certain times, if you think Tibbs grew up in this town, but let's say he left really young,
Yeah.
because his mom was like, your life is going to be shit here. I'm going to send you to Philly. That's where you're going to learn. You're going to make something of your life. That's where everything will prosper for you. But in that environment, it wasn't really his people. So he could have that disconnect.
Yeah.
With his own people, but he finds this thing that he connects with. And then that forms around his identity, like him being a police officer, good fucking police officer.
Yeah.
You know, he's the best in Philly. Within that, your whole identity revolves around that, and your sense of worth, how you let people treat you, which the other black people in this town don't really have, because they haven't had the opportunity. Which I always find interesting when, in this day and age, how sometimes, and I think for me, it's small because I grew up where everyone looked like me.
Yeah.
So the idea of being black wasn't like, but then when you're removed from that and then there's only one or two of you in an environment, your identity sort of flips. And then you start to think about, oh, okay, who am I? Maybe you can speak to it. Have you ever felt like that? Like your whole identity doesn't connect to your environment?
There's been times when I've been the minority in the room. I did a show at a historically black college in the U.S. where I was the only white person in the cast.
Is that when you played the racist?
I was playing a plantation owner.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and I was doing that because
Max, I gotta say, I'm a little bit suspicious of you right now.
Well, listen, what I was told was that no one else at the school wanted to do it. They couldn't find another white person to do it, and so they put out feelers around town. And I just had made this connection with someone, and I got brought in. And I had a great time playing the plantation. No, I had a great time in the show. It was an interesting show. It was, and I had a good time with the cast, but it was very much, this is not my environment. This is, and not even in a way that like I don't relate to it. Of course I could find things to relate to in it, but specifically like, no, I am stepping into other people's environment here. It was a historically black college. It was an all-black cast. Aside from me, black director. And it was dealing with some heavy shit. So I was very much like, I am a guest here. I am happy to learn.
Happy to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I had that experience.
I don't think many many white people have that experience, but many black people have the experience reversed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I have been in majority white rooms for the longest time,
Mhm.
and very few times have I been in a room where everyone is like me. But then, I don't know, surely that must affect your brain in some way.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
To deal with it all the time sounds very stressful. That for me, who's someone who got to visit that feeling occasionally and didn't have to live with it
Yeah.
hanging over my whole life, it was rewarding, I guess. I'm glad I went through that, but yeah, I can't speak to.
Do you think if you went to a black high school, you'd have the black accent like Colin Jost on SNL?
I wouldn't do that. If anything, I would be more conscious of how I'm talking, because bits of Ave things slip into popular language all the time. So much of slang comes from the things cool black people say throughout history, and I have plenty of stuff I've picked up that originated in Ave.
But I think it works well because even with Virgil,
Mm-hmm.
he is different from immediately, like how he holds himself. It has to do with the performance that Sidney Poitier puts in, but everything. If you take your mind back to that time, and if you were a white audience member seeing him like that, you'd be like, "This is different." Oh, from what I've been taught or told to think about these people, this is different. I hate to say the word, but he seems civilized.
What is it? The other suspect says to him, "Why are you wearing white man's clothes?"
Yeah.
It's a completely bullshit, lens to put on things, but something people absolutely felt and believed, and
It would have been nice to talk to him about that performance.
yeah. I haven't seen any interviews about it, but I'm sure there's some great ones out there.
What else did you want to talk about?
Some cinematography things. I've talked about that zoom into the car and the shadow play throughout it, which is great. The scene with the wife, played by, what's her name, Anne Rice? Lee Grant. Anne Rice, that's a novelist. Lee Grant plays Mrs. Corbett?
Yeah.
Colbert. Mrs. Colbert. The first scene with her that we see, it's all one shot, and it's so great. And it's the Chief and Virgil walk into the room, in the back of the shot. Walk in, we meet her, follow her around as she finds out that her husband is dead, as she has this total flip reaction to Virgil, and as she breaks down, ends the scene looking into camera, crying with everyone else behind her. It's all one shot, and it's just beautiful, perfect staging, perfect framing. You love it. You love to see it.
I wonder, one-shots, this is an extremely amateur question.
No,
Are one-shots extremely hard to do?
depending on the shot, yeah.
Because if you think of like Birdman, which I mean, they say it was all one shot, but
There's cuts.
there's cuts in them.
Yeah.
That seems like, in my head, if you rehearse with the actors, with the crew, then it's just like a play. You just keep going.
Yes.
But I guess if you fuck up, if some actors aren't quick to it, not even just the actors, but the crew,
Mm-hmm.
if they mess up, then you have to start again.
Yeah. It depends on the specifics of the shot. Back in the early days of movie making, it was easier to film scenes in one take because you could just have them rehearse it and then put the camera down when cameras were still huge and you couldn't move them all over the place. You could just film them, easy, flat scene, boom, print it. But then there's things like the opening scene of Boogie Nights, to talk about PTA again, which is this one shot following people into this restaurant, this club, around the club, meeting all the characters, meeting Luis Guzman, meeting Burt Reynolds, meeting Mark Wahlberg, and it goes throughout the whole thing, and it's so complicated. And if any one of those people fucks up, they got to start again. If any cameraman doesn't move in the right way, if one of the extras blocks the shot wrong, it's very impressive when things
Yeah, it is impressive. Extremely impressive. Filmmaking is cool, yeah.
Ah, it's so cool.
I've got, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've got a lot of respect for filmmakers.
I want to do it so bad. I wrote down the first time we see Virgil, it's just his legs walking out of the train. And I just wrote down a great way to build up any characters, introduce them legs first. Because then when we finally see him and he's just sitting, reading the paper, cool as he can be, and immediately gets arrested.
That would suck. Thankfully, I haven't had that experience yet. And hopefully I never will. But mistaken identity. Especially if they start to use AI to screen criminals.
Oh god. That's gonna be dystopian as hell. Because it's also the data that they feed the AI, and if, like in America, statistically, black people are arrested more than white people because of all sorts of racial biases. But that means the arrests on record are way more black people than white people. So if you feed that data into the robot, it's going to think, oh, more black people commit crimes than white people.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
After watching this film, how far do you think your country has gotten away from that? We've already established that some of it's still going on.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the, well, I say to the overt level, but it's changing.
It depends. It depends on the town. I mean, I think there are still some towns in America that are almost exactly like this. The internet makes it easier to see when bad shit goes down, but bad shit still goes down all the time.
It's a great film. Funny. It's a comedy, really, if you watch it in the right point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a. I sort of feel like it's a historical, I don't know, ident of a certain time and period. And you just so if you watch it, you just go, oh shit, it's just been the same shit over and over again. But yeah. What are you gonna pick next week?
I don't know yet. I'm debating between a few.
A few. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. I'm thinking of one that was another one that's like important to me with movies, but it's one that I'm not as fond of as Magnolia.
Okay.
Like my perspective on it has changed over the years.
Okay.
But then there's other ones that I'm like, I just really like this movie.
Okay, I think that would be a good switch.
Yeah.
Because I think we've done Magnolia, we've done In the Heat of the Night. Maybe something that's just fun.
Just fun?
Just fun. Just fun.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Maybe we'll see what. Maybe it's a film we've both seen. Not both seen.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking off mic. I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil it here.
Okay. If you got to the end of this, wow.
Welcome.
Welcome.
About the same length as the other one. Hour and almost 45.
Oh. Well, we do go off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind. I don't really care.
No.
It is what it is. But if you're listening to this on YouTube, like and subscribe. That's the first time I've said that.
I'm never going to say that.
Like and subscribe, guys. Like and subscribe. Turn your notifications on, dude.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button, dude. And yeah,
Christ.
we'll be back next week. Episodes drop on Friday.
Fridays is when I've decided, arbitrarily.
Okay, Friday is when we drop an episode. That's it for this week. We're gonna stop
That's
and
it, yeah.
carry on off.
All
But
right.
yeah, stay blessed. We'll name this podcast later.